everyone. Welcome back to the Light and Life podcast, conversations on faith and life in downtown Colorado Springs. I'm your host, Liza, here with Pastor Tim.
Hi, Liza. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. Today we are talking about Sabbath. The title of this episode is Sabbath, Rest is Resistance.
Ooh.
Which is in...
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like direct opposition from our last episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exercise, so I'm sensing a pattern here.
Well, you got to work out and then you rest.
Right.
Or you rest and then you work out. Something like that.
Chicken or the egg?
Chicken or the egg. Yep. Good. Well, first of all, we're airing on Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to all you dads out there.
Yeah. So call your dad. Get in touch with your dad. Happy Father's Day to everybody. But we thought we would talk about Sabbath. We actually had a Sabbath episode about this time of year last year. Mm-hmm. So I think I just get in this mindset. But I was preaching a sermon series. I typically, in our sermon series for our church, when we hit June or so, I kind of try to, actually as the pastor, I try to let the church breathe. I try to encourage the church to hey, let's make sure that we're resting, because it's part of it. It's part of life. It's part of what God intends for us, and we're not intended to just run 24/7. So in a world that is It
sounds like you're starting a movie.
A Terminator movie, like Terminator 6. In a world where AI has...
Terrifying.
Yeah.
I didn't like that.
It is terrifying.
Don't do that again.
It is terrifying. All right. So in a world that is running pretty fast, would you agree that the world is running pretty fast paced?
Yes, too fast at times.
Too fast. Rushing around. Actually, so the practice of Sabbath, honoring a day of rest, 1 and 7, is totally countercultural. And it's actually something that I think as Christians, if you begin to practice this, not only will your own flesh and your own patterns resist it with all you've got, but you will be shamed and embarrassed by your peers and neighbors. Like, what are you doing? And some of your coworkers, like, what are you doing? You don't stop. So that's the point. Sabbath rest is resistance. But that resistance pays off.
Right. I think America, not just the world, I think America is like one of the most fast-paced of them all in terms of a work environment.
Yeah, you think so?
I do.
I mean, Japan's got us beat.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm basing my experience off of two very different countries, which are Costa Rica
okay.
and Australia. These are just two places that I have been that I think about. But I worked in Australia, and it was a lot more slow-paced. Oh, you want to take a few days off? Righto. Go.
Righto.
Righto. I can't do it. I'm just, the only word I know how to say is no, and it's nar.
Nar.
It's like you put a nar on it. In Costa Rica, it's like everyone seems so happy and laid back, and like, oh yes, the work will get done, but it might not be as efficient.
It's not everything. Yeah, there's other parts of life.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And we say, in my experience, work hard, play hard.
Yeah.
But there's not very much time to play.
Right.
And if you're trying to work hard so that you can play hard, you start to realize your play starts to diminish because you're working for a goal that you're not going to be able to reach because you're working so hard.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's right. So
I go through
drive.
phases.
I'm sure you do. I mean, you're in a job that can pull your attention 7 days a week, almost 24 hours a day, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'll wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and think like,
yeah,
I have to take care of this, or I have an idea of someone that I can reach out to. This would make a lot of sense for them. Or there's times where the weekend comes and I want to set a boundary, but my field of work, there's no clock that turns off.
Right.
Really. So setting boundaries sometimes looks like within a given day and not like a whole day off of work, if that makes sense.
But still trying to create some space for something other than work, productivity.
I just change my mind from it because when it comes to work, I work, and then I want to fit all the play in, but then there is no rest.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to work so hard so that I can play, so that I can adventure, so that I can do all of these cool things while I'm young and my bones aren't aching.
Yeah.
But then I'm not resting, and then I go into the next week.
Right.
Feeling unsatisfied. And I start to notice that when I do have a reset, or I do, take morning time with the Lord and just even have a pause away from the busyness, that I just have a completely new outlook on the day. And I know that I'm a person and I'm interacting with other people, and I can treat them that way and not treat my job as a chore.
Yeah.
Because that's what I fall victim to, is treating it as like this is what I have to do. There's so many things to get done. I could always keep working because it's a commission role. There's always more work to be done.
Yeah, you could never,
you could always keep.
Always do more, make more.
Mm-hmm.
And
But the mentality behind that, I notice I do a lot better when my mentality is shifted to like, who do I get to interact with? Who do I get to help and provide value to today? And that usually comes with pause and with
after
rest.
a reset and a rest. And
Mm-hmm.
so we were made by God, and God did not intend us to work 24/7. So
we're limited, like we talked about last time.
Yeah, our bodies are limited, our emotional capacity, or psychological capacity, or spiritual capacities. We just were not made. And a lot of people live their lives like, I'm going to work. I'm going to blast for 3 months, 6 months, and then it's all going to be worth it because of this awesome vacation that I'm going to take. But you don't get, you weren't built to run at that pace, and that vacation is not going to restore you from those months of frantic, desperate work. Mm-hmm. And it'll wear at your body. It'll warp your soul. One author says it warps your soul to run at warp speed. So God put a fourth commandment in the 10 Commandments. I'm going to read the whole thing. You ready?
Ready. Hit me.
Deuteronomy 5 is one place to find it. But observe the Sabbath day and keep it holy, as the Lord your God commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. Neither you, nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your ox, your donkey, or any of your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns, so that your male and female servants may rest as you do. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. So that's the longest of the 10 Commandments. It's got the most explanatory, like most of God's 10 Commandments, he does not argue, like, why. He just says this is the way it is. Mm-hmm. So he's got all this stuff in there for us, and yet this is the one. This is the one, right? Nobody does this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the 10 Commandments. If you don't do it, it's as bad as committing murder. It's like adultery. It's like lying. It's. So what is up with our inability to do this? Why is this so hard?
I think that I'm thinking back to a conversation I recently had with a friend, in that it's like, okay, why did God create all of these rules? Is it just to suck the fun out of everything? Is it to suck the productivity or longevity out of everything? And the reality is, you're not, if you're breaking these commandments, and God, still loves you, there's grace for it, but
right.
But breaking these commandments doesn't necessarily make you like horrible in God's sight. He has these commandments not because he doesn't want to not because he wants to suck the fun out of your life or limit you in terms of like your happiness or your growth. He does it because these things will hurt you eventually.
Yes.
And when that was worded to me or positioned to me that way in a lot of different areas in my life, it kind of clicked. Why are these limitations on our life, like the Bible? Why are these laws that could be turned into like, no, this is actually really fun, or this feels really good, or this, you could go on and on about all these different sins.
Yeah.
Why are they viewed sins?
Why is he taking this away from me?
Yeah, and it's because they hurt you, and he loves us.
Right.
And I think Sabbath is one of the most applicable things that go alongside that.
Yeah, I think it is. And there's great Psalms like Psalm 119 about God, your law is life, and how, God's, and Jesus said in John, in the Gospel of John, I think chapter 5, but he said, your commandments are life, about God's commands. So God commands us things for our good. There's no part of God that's like, I really want to make things, I really want to punish.
Yeah.
Let's
make this a lot more complicated.
Yeah. I want to see if you'll dance the way I like you to dance or something. It's these are life-giving commands for sure. Like, and that on those negative commands, like if you commit adultery, that's not going to add positivity to your life.
Yeah.
And,
at all.
So, it might be, anyway. So especially with this one, this is really interesting, I think, because God points out in the commandment, this is because you guys were slaves. Like, remember, don't forget, you were slaves. And so for the people of God to receive this commandment, they had spent 400 years in slavery where they had to work 7 days a week, no stop. The only reason they existed was work for somebody else's benefit. If you stopped work, you were beaten. You were just a worker. And now they escape that. They're pulled out of that. They have the Exodus, and God redeems them, saves them from that. And now God says, I'm your God, and my commandment to you is that you rest, is that you stop and rest. Mm-hmm. And honestly, like, here's this people on the face of the earth, right? And all these other gods, these false gods, are telling people to do all kinds of things. This is the only God that is saying, my commandment for you is to stop. Take a day of rest, 1 day in 7. I mean, that's an enormous gift for them. So why do you think it's so hard for us to do that? I mean, do you feel like it's hard for people to stop?
You know how some people are uncomfortable in receiving gifts?
Yes.
Like they don't want to receive it. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to do it. They think it's too much. I think that could be part of it. At least back then. I don't know about now. But
because it feels
out of the ordinary, undeserved, maybe.
Indulgent?
Yeah, maybe there's like a string attached.
Okay.
Like, I'll let you rest if.
As long as.
I don't know. That's like, I try to put myself into these people's shoes for a second, or sandals, whatever they were wearing.
Yeah, sure.
And I really think of how I would take this. Like, you must rest. My immediate competitive brain wants to be like, or what?
Yeah.
Even though it is such a relief. Like, he's commanding us to be free. And
yes, he's commanded us to be free. And in one way or another, we prefer to be enslaved to our work.
Mm-hmm. Or it's from a productivity standpoint.
Yeah.
It's a lack of trust, I think, in.
Yeah.
Okay, God can do in 6 days what I think I can do in 7.
Yes. Yes.
That's how I kind of view it, is we're afraid of letting go of the reins of the projection of our life, our work, and in turn our livelihood.
Which is at the very heart of sin, is believing God has it out for me. God doesn't want what's right for me. I know better than God, so I will do it this other way. And then we crash, right?
Oh, yeah, I think I can outwit him sometimes.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, I
can
should
game.
rest.
I'm gonna game God. Yep.
Yeah. But here's how I can get ahead. Here's how I can do all of these things for my own gain. And really, like I was saying earlier, I realized that I actually am more productive when I rest. I'm able to more lean into who God created me to be in my given calling. Right now, it's, just in relationship with other people and really listening rather than pushing. I just realized that I'm not the right one here. Like, I always think that I am, and I always think that there's more work to be done. But in reality, when I rest and when I listen to God's telling me, I'm then able to carry out my work with joy and with peace rather than as a chore or as, just something to roll my eye out. What's the purpose of this?
Yeah, like if you say this, and this is the pattern of idolatry, like you say, money is a good servant, but a terrible master. Like same with anything, like work. Work is a good, part of your life to use in the right ways, but it's a terrible God to worship. It's a terrible master. And as soon as you're enslaved to it as an idol, it's just going to suck all the joy out of it. And it's just never going to be enough and never going to be satisfying. And you don't have any gratitude. You're just, like you say, it's just like, well, now I feel like I'm back in Egypt, just getting whipped by this, when just to take a proper pattern of work and rest would restore a posture of gratitude and like, oh, I see why God has me doing this and his purposes. Yeah.
There's studies on like diminishing returns in terms of happiness.
Yeah, sure.
On pay.
On pay, yeah.
Yeah, so like if you're paid X amount a year, after that amount, your happiness isn't actually impacted.
Yeah, it's like $75,000.
And they say money can't buy happiness, but like scientifically proven it cannot. In terms of these.
Yeah, I've seen those.
These studies. So it's interesting. Why are we so afraid of stopping?
Yeah. So I think I think there's reasons. Like I think we put all of our identity in our productivity. We sometimes we're just in the habit of running so hard. The people around us expect it. The culture expects it. And some people are just afraid to stop. Like, I don't want to be alone with my thoughts. I don't want to see what happens when I let my emotions catch up with me. So it's just race,
Yeah, it's a coping mechanism sometimes for people to just kind of push everything else out. This is what I can focus. This is what I can control.
Right. So Sabbath is categorized in the Christian life as a spiritual discipline, meaning it's something you're not just going to naturally do it. It's something you're going to have to practice and learn before it becomes habitual. You can't just get up and do it one day, like get up and like say, I want to be a marathon runner. So just, Monday morning you get up and. Have you heard of this movie called Phantom of the Open?
I have not.
I haven't watched it yet, but
I feel like I disappoint you every time.
No, because this is
you
not.
Always bring up these references, and I always feel dumb.
From like the 1980s, but this is not from the 1980s. This is on Amazon Prime. But
all right.
I it's not very popular. But a friend of mine told me about it. I haven't even watched it yet. But it's some guy who just woke up and he said, and it's a true story. He said, I'm going to try out for the Scottish Open, which is a golf tournament.
Okay.
He'd never played golf before in his life.
That's awesome.
And so it's this whole story of him just like, and somehow he got picked up. So he showed up on day one and he shot 131, which is terrible.
Oh, okay. I'm just nodding my head like I know what golf numbers are.
Oh, yeah. Sports ball. And, but yeah, he shot 131 and it's just I guess it's just this hilarious story, but But you can't just wake up and say, I'm going to play in the Scottish Open or I'm going to run a marathon. You can't wake up and expect to go run the Pikes Peak Ascent. Like you have to train. So give yourself a lot of grace. What could we try? Peter Scazzaro is a pastor from New York, and he's written a lot about emotionally healthy spirituality. Mm-hmm. And he says you can't be spiritually mature if you're not emotionally mature. And he's written a lot of really healthy stuff. And he says biblical Sabbath is a 24-hour block of time in which we stop work, enjoy rest, practice delight, and contemplate God. A 24-hour time in which we do these 4 things. So it doesn't always have to be Sunday. I can't take Sunday. But he says it should be 1 day in 7 to do these 4 things. And the first one is stop. Just stop. Stop work. What would that look like, for you?
Okay. So
like a 24-hour, because I get what you're saying. Like, I just need that break in a day. I remember Rick Warren, who is a famous a pastor from California, Camelback Church, Purpose-Driven Life, he wrote. Mm-hmm. And he was asked after many years, 30 years or something, how did you make it through? Because being a pastor is pretty stressful. And like, how did you make it through for all that time? And he said, I practice this discipline, divert daily, withdraw weekly, abandon annually. And so every day, some diversion to remind myself I'm not just a working person. I'm a child of God, Withdraw weekly, that's weekly Sabbath. Like I'm going to pull out. And abandon annually is you got to go on vacation, turn off your phone, turn off your email, trust that God's got it and it'll be there when you come back.
Yeah.
And he said, that's your pattern. And that's good. That's really good. But I have a hard time with like 24-hour break. So what would that look like for you?
A lot of anxiety, to be honest with you. I think Sundays actually I am able.
Yeah, to set that aside.
Yes. I would say Sunday night before work I do look at my email, I do look at my calendar, and in a way that is working. I do, email some people back so that I set myself up well for the week.
Yeah.
And my mental excuse for that is I'll go into the day tomorrow so frantic if I don't do this, to set myself up. But I think this weekend, for example, I'm going on a rafting trip. Mm-hmm. I'll be gone for 3 days, no internet, no nothing.
Can't get to your phone. It's in a watertight bag.
And you know what's going to happen? Nothing. The world's not going to end.
Right.
No one's going to die.
Right.
People die every day.
Right.
But
Yeah.
Forgive me.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is, okay. I can pick up where I left off. My industry is incredibly deadline driven, and if I were to take something off unexpectedly, I feel like the world will end. I just do. I'm a workhorse. I really am. Mm-hmm. But the reality of it is, even if something unexpected happened, I'm human. I can only do what I can do.
Right.
And I actually had a mentor of mine tell me, you know what, Liza, you teach people how to treat you by the boundaries that you set. And I have not set boundaries for myself. Therefore, people do reach out to me at any point in the day. And I think that there is a sense of urgency always. Yeah. I don't, that's one of my weaknesses is viewing everything as urgent.
Okay, yeah. Tyranny of the urgent. It's been,
Yeah. So what would that look like for you?
Well, one thing that's helpful that people talk about is that the ancient day was kept from dinner to dinner. So, you would start at 6 p.m. and go to the next day at 6 p.m. Mm-hmm. So sunset to sunset, or that's how they counted days. And that's kind of helpful sometimes because just think about, okay, what if I could, my attempt, which is not I don't have success at. But my attempt is Thursday to Friday, that at like 6 p.m. Thursday, I really try to shut off the phone, the email, stop work, and have Friday, and then any other time, of course, I can be at work. That my job needs. But anyway, but to have that idea of like Sunday night going into the week, having some time to prepare, Saturday night to Sunday night, maybe that's a 24-hour period, but it's hard to think about. But I understand the gift of it. Like if I don't stop, I'm teaching myself that I'm the center of the universe, that I'm essential, that I'm, the world can't go on without me, like you said.
And we're teaching other people to treat it that way too.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, is how much is it like this commandment is about, like, and also the people that just live around you, and like the people that work for you, and the people that, and also the ox and the animals, and like if you don't stop, all that other stuff keeps going because you're influencing all that stuff. But if you stop, you're teaching those around you it's okay not to be the center of the universe, and it's okay that you're not the center of the universe.
Right.
Yeah. That God is God and I'm not. Yeah. And you remember that he loves you, not because of your performance and your productivity and your efficiency and your bottom line. He loves you because of who you are, and it's so, you need that so much. Okay, so stop. When we stop, number 2, we get to rest. And it's so funny when my kids run so hard. And right now, when school's out, they're sleeping like all day long.
The dream.
The dream. But you feel for them, but also there's a lot of rest that needs to catch up with them. Like you're going to pay the piper one way or the other.
Right.
You can't just run your body into the dirt.
Or you'll get sick.
Yes.
You fall asleep at your desk.
Yes. Are you talking for a friend? Speaking for a friend?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, right. So rest is really important. And God made us that way. Like I say, you can't make up for 6 weeks of running hard by taking 6 days of vacationing, and saying, now I'm all rested. It doesn't work like that. Like your body was not made for that pace. So the third part is delight. This spiritual practice of Sabbath is not about emptiness. It's not about keeping things away from you. It's about creating a container or a place or a bucket where you can find delight in your life, the life that God's given you. And God wants you, like you said, you got to make time to play. You need to have a regular container of space and time in your week where the point is to enjoy life as the gift that God gave it to you and not work. But so a really important part of this, as a positive practice, is to make a list of the things that bring you delight. Like I really like going to the lake, or I really like listening to music, or I really like watching a good movie.
Yeah, I think, do you think delight and gratitude go hand in hand?
Yeah, I think so, because when you pay attention to the things that are in your life that God has brought you that bring you joy, you're naturally thankful. But if you're just living this sort of embittered, enslaved life to work, where you're not experiencing any of those things, you're like, yeah, God,
Yeah, God.
This life you made is terrible. And, well, yeah. So it's spending time in delight. And then fourth is worship. I mean, it is a day that God wants us to spend contemplating Him. I mean, getting closer to Him. Worshiping with others, if you're free to gather with others, other believers. Because it is countercultural. And, not everybody gets up on Sunday morning and gathers with other believers to worship God. So you need that community to stand with you, opening your Bible and not having to rush through it, but spending time in His Word. I like to try to change my songs, change my music list, to try to make sure that what I'm feeding my soul with on that day has a different character, and just taking in creation and people and the gifts of life around you as being personally handed to you by God, as treasures, as gifts, and practicing that joy and that gratitude. So this is not me speaking as the Sabbath expert. I'm terrible at it, but I understand its value, and I hope that that me and you and our listeners and everybody, that we can just sort of think, yeah, maybe that's something I need to start to develop.
Mm-hmm. And encourage one another in doing that as well.
Yeah.
That wraps up today's episode. And if you're enjoying these conversations on faith and life, as always, please leave us a review so that more people can find us. And we'd love for you to join us in the conversation. So if there's a topic that you'd like us to discuss, please feel free to email podcast@firstprescos.org. And if you're watching the video version on YouTube, please leave a comment below. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the next few episodes with summer guests. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right. See you, everybody. We love you guys.